Now, Save Our Sacred Lands, an organization involved in the Stilfontein Mine in the northwest, claims that the state's decision to deprive people of food and necessities is unconstitutional and violates international law. They argue that all human beings have a fundamental right to life, and a fake news narrative that miners are not trapped is inaccurate. At least 300 people are in a critical condition and up to 4,000 people remain trapped underground. National Coordinator July Eccles joins us now to discuss further. Thank you so much for your time on the program. So you say unconstitutional and violates international law. Can you tell us more on why you say this?
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners as well. What we are seeing at Stilfontein on the ground is a situation where these miners have been trapped underground. They are unable to leave. And despite what we see in comment sections and online, they have no way out. So while we do see for instance, the footage, we see volunteers pulling people up. They can only pull one person up every 3 hours, and it's backbreaking work. Meanwhile, there are 4,000 people up to trapped underground, and we know that at least 300 of them are in a very critical condition. The letters that we've seen coming up state that people are unresponsive, they're unconscious. They also say that people have been deprived of medicine. So this situation is really of the state's making. The state took an active decision to block food and to chase away the ground operations that was at this mine shaft, and basically trapping people in a death trap underground. And it was only when the community, along with Makua, Mining Affected Communities in Action, joined forces and demanded via the court that food be allowed into the shaft, that food was once again allowed in. And what we know now is that the people in the shaft are only eating at most one small meal of instant porridge a day, which is not enough to really survive on as human beings, especially given that these are people who are used to doing heavy lifting and hard manual labor, who would need protein to sustain themselves. We know that no medicine has entered for months, and again, people are really in critical condition on the verge of death. And if they are not resurfaced very, very soon, there are going to be hundreds of dead bodies. And we as a country need to ask ourselves, what does that mean about us as a country, that we would allow that to happen, or that we have actually created this situation? And we need to urgently take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and also just speaking on some of the reflections of the country as you speak about the country, some of those reflections, you've heard comments on end where people are also saying that what is currently unfolding or what is happening there right now is a result of criminal activity, such as they were not even supposed to be there in the first place. What is your reaction to such comments?
I'm glad you brought up criminality, because the mine owner, Stilfontein Gold Mine, committed a criminal act by leaving that mine shaft open. They have 12 shafts in the area, and 6 of them have been abandoned, which means that they are open holes, that a child could fall into that hole. And we should remember that that particular shaft is 2 kilometers deep. And it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around how deep that mine is. But if you were to look at Vodacom Tower in Joburg and multiply that by 10, that is how deep that mine shaft is. And by leaving the shaft open, by not doing its responsibilities under NEMA and other laws, the company has created a situation where people, remember these are mining towns, they're built around mining. So everyone in that community relied on mining in one way or another. And now they're without jobs, they're poor. So between the company and the state, they've created a situation where people are desperate enough to go underground. Many of those people are trafficked into that situation. They're not there by choice. Many others are simply desperate and want to feed their families. And when we listen to what community members are saying, they're saying the same thing, that these are our brothers, our breadwinners, etc. Please save them. So when we talk about criminal activity, of course there is criminal activity, but we have to remember the source of the problem of where this comes from in the first place.
And now that you speak about the potential source of the problem, if we were to approach this holistically and look at the avenues that can and might be explored in terms of, aiding this situation right now. I mean, many even said that this actually needs a social solution that might also see those trapped miners come back to the surface. What would you say? How do we approach all of this, and how does this get fixed?
Well, at the moment, there's an urgent solution that's needed, and then there's a little more long-term solution that we need to talk about. So the urgent solution, as you've already said, is to bring the miners up immediately. And we have to emphasize, no matter how many times we have to repeat it, they're trapped there. They can't come up of their own will. It's up to the state and the company to bring them up with machinery as urgently as possible. And none of us, not the relief workers, not the community, has that kind of money or machinery. So they urgently need to be brought up, and they urgently need healthcare, because many of them are on the verge of death, and without urgent healthcare, they will die. The second thing is that we then need a serious inquiry into what went wrong in this situation. So we need human rights monitors. We need international human rights watch bodies and local human rights agencies to go and monitor and to collect the facts. And then we will need some accountability from everyone who has created the situation and left us in this situation. And we know that at least 8 bodies have been pulled up. But we know that there are going to be more, and unfortunately. So already this is a massacre. And many people are saying that this is going to make Marikana look like a walk in the park. So we urgently, as a country, need to, first of all, get the miners out, and then we need to start looking into who needs to be held accountable, so that this doesn't happen again. And finally, we should also heed the call of Makua, who actually came about during the Marikana, or just after the Marikana crisis, and said, why is artisanal mining illegal? Why are we not allowing people to mine with a license so that it can be not an illegal activity, and that it is not run by syndicates, and so that ordinary community members have a way of generating income and feeding themselves.
Okay, for Save Our Sacred Heart is July Eccles, who's the national coordinator there. Thanks very much indeed for your insights this hour. Time now for a quick break. We're back with you straight after this.